The Ranged DPS within Final Fantasy XIV fulfill a surprisingly unique role when compared to the other types of jobs in this MMO. Well, at least 2 out of the 3 do, as they're more akin to DPS support than heavy damage dealers, and this can make their position within a party very interesting. But how true are the preconceptions and jokes around these jobs when compared to the essence of the jobs themselves? Well, today we're going to reveal what the lore behind your favorite ranged DPS job in Final Fantasy XIV says about your Warrior of Light, whether you knew it or not. We'll start where it all began, with the ever-helpful Bard. The real joke here is that some people are still praying for something like a Ranger job in Final Fantasy XIV. Ever since this job's introduction, there have been some people arguing that Bard and Ranger should have never been hybridized into this one job, and should have remained as 2 separate things. And I'm willing to bet money that a chunk of those people are from Final Fantasy XI. But all teasing aside, I honestly don't see it happening. Mostly because of how jobs in Final Fantasy XIV are married at the hip to their weapons of choice, with 0 room for flexibility. So with how bows and firearms are already taken, it narrows down the list pretty significantly. But who knows, maybe they'll get super creative later on and do something crazy. But Ranger fans, I wouldn't hold my breath. And yet, is the damage from a Ranger job even necessary? Mechanically, Bards already fulfill a unique role within Final Fantasy XIV, acting as both a DPS and support at the same time as they empower their allies and debuff enemies. Which ultimately brings us to the truth. Canonically, Bards in Final Fantasy XIV are much stronger than people think. Now, of course they'll never pull off the DPS of a Black Mage, but the lore is very clear. A traditional archer or ranger with an Eorzea could never outclass a master bard. The reason for this is very simple. The bards in Final Fantasy XIV aren't just bowmen that sing a fun song mid-combat. A Warrior of Light that mains bard is more akin to what people would call an arcane archer. This part of a bard's lore is strangely glossed over very often, but the truth is very simple. The reason a bard's arrows are so much more powerful than that of a traditional archer is because of how their songs create temporary enchantments. Their arrows will fly faster and hit harder than anyone else's because they're rarely just firing an arrow. They are weaving aether together within their songs to empower their bodies and their shots. Since they are not only able to make themselves uniquely powerful, but also apply said power to nearby allies, it becomes very clear why the bards in Final Fantasy XIV are actually a force to be reckoned with. They've merged magical songs and arrows to create a lethal combo. So bear your bow with pride, knowing that the common ranger would need to seriously step up their game to even come close to firing arrows with the same strength and style of a bard. Which brings us to one of the newest jobs in Final Fantasy XIV's lore, and a question that I get very often. What's the point of magic in a world that has firearms? And under normal circumstances, I can't really blame people for memeing about this one. The idea that a dinky little wand can somehow stand up to an AK would make most people laugh, and technically it still does.
No, definitely not.
This video still gets me, man. But this is why Machinist is in a unique position of having a weapon that most people would call superior to all others. Because what hope does someone have against a weapon that can fire projectiles faster than the eye can see? But therein lies the problem, and unfortunately, the truth of the lore knocks the strength of Machinist's favorite weapon down quite a few pegs. The reason firearms aren't insanely popular within this MMO is because they're not nearly as strong as people think. Or rather, people underestimate just how strong everything else is. Within the world of Final Fantasy XIV, there exist many unique materials that we simply don't have in our own reality. Within Eorzea alone, there exist metals and alloys that are so strong that bullets will just bounce off of them. Not only that, but metals like cobalt are lightweight and plentiful enough that a common soldier will wear it, making standard firearms next to useless. That's why Limsa Lominsa doesn't really have any problems with weapons. Oh sure, a crazed maniac might be able to fire off a couple shots and hurt some normal people at first, but once the armored law enforcers start approaching, it's game over. Standard munitions will bounce off of their armor like it's nothing. And that's before I get into how tough certain monster hides can get. A good leatherworker could make bulletproof armor from those beasts. Then you have people who can strengthen their bodies to the point of deflecting damage, and then the countless types of shielding spells there are, but I think you get the idea by now. Firearms aren't the be-all end-all because everything else in the world is simply on a higher level than what we are used to in our reality. But that's not to say that they are useless, because the true strength of a machinist in Final Fantasy XIV lies with two things: precision and variety. A machinist isn't just someone with a firearm, they are a sharpshooter drilled to aim where their target is weakest, whether it be an armored soldier or a rampaging monster. So while their weapon might not be a guaranteed one-hit kill, it'll certainly deal damage. But if I'm being honest, their main weapon isn't where their true strength lies. In reality, it's the Aethero Transformer on their hip. This nifty little device is the sole reason a machinist is able to employ the wide array of gadgets at their disposal. The idea of having the right tool for every situation is what makes a machinist so strong. Whether it be dealing heavy damage to a single target or covering a wide area with effects, a machinist has something for everything. Frankly, the biggest thing holding a machinist back in the lore is experience. As a first-generation machinist, the Warrior of Light doesn't have centuries of proven knowledge to draw upon, making this job the most experimental out of all of them. And this technically makes Machinist the weakest job in canon. While I can already hear people feverishly typing out how that can't be true since they out-DPS everyone else in their raid team, parsing numbers completely miss the point when it comes to lore. But that's a story for another video. However, it's the new abilities of a machinist that people should be proud of, as the creation and refinement of these techniques will end up creating a job that is awe-inspiring later down the line. Lastly, we return to party-wide support as we cover the Graceful Dancer. You know, a lot of people were asking for this job and I'm really happy they got it. But tell me, how does it feel to get sloppy seconds from Machinist? How does it feel to get the RNG mechanics that Machinist technically had first? Or does that just make Dancer better than Machinist for creating a job that people actually like with those mechanics? Ultimately, that's up to personal taste, but I'll be honest, I kinda like how Dancer plays. It's very flowy. Not only that, but unfortunately Dancer is one of those jobs that hasn't had all of its background data released because of reasons. It's a joke in of itself that it takes this long to get what's ultimately gonna be less than a page's worth of usable data. So I can't do a thorough breakdown with confidence just yet. But what I can do is analyze what we currently have in relation to the job quest and piece that information together. And I have to say, Dancer's rich history is to be respected. Much like Bard, a Dancer is able to empower nearby allies in unique and creative ways. Instead of songs, they use their bodies to guide and channel ether into bursts of power that not only strike at the wicked, but rouse their friends into performing greater feats of strength. If that sounds silly, then I posit this to you. A monk uses their body and movements to channel ether into their punches and kicks. A Dancer does something similar, but instead of keeping all that energy for themselves, they release it around them. As proven through countless quests and abilities, ether and emotion have a very unique relationship, so the good vibes that a dancer puts out is not to be underestimated. If anything, if the Warrior of Light is a dancer, they've chosen a very humble path, as they've made sure that their efforts are never just for their own sake. And that, my friends, will cover all of the current ranged DPS in Final Fantasy XIV. I promise that when Dancer gets more fleshed out that I'll indeed cover it in greater detail, just like the other jobs. As far as the ranged DPS goes, I'm always happy to see a Bard and Dancer simply because of the unique utility they always bring to a group. A Machinist might be more selfish by comparison, but none can deny that it is pretty fun to run and jump around the map without having to stop firing. However, regardless of which you choose, take comfort in the position and enjoy the freedom that comes with 100% uptime. And until next we meet, stay safe, my friends. Thank you all for watching to the end. If you enjoyed this video, why not subscribe and share this with your fellow adventurers? With your help, I'll try to reach out even further and bring even greater stories to you. Although, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge my biggest contributors. A grand thank you to Amina Viltaria, Travanchet, Potato, Sage Mouse, Sinalv Bagel, and Cizani, with an additional nod to the scholarships on screen. Links to things like my Twitter and that of my channel artist Caddy can be found in the description. Thank you all for your viewership as well as your support, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day. Class dismissed.